So, you know how every once in a while a new open source project just explodes? Well, in early 2026, one went so viral, it literally caused Mac Minis to sell out. Yeah, developers were scrambling to set up dedicated servers for it. The project is called OpenClaw, and it's trying to do something fundamentally different from the AI tools we've all been playing with. So let's get into it and figure out what all the hype is really about. All right, so for the last few years, we've basically been having conversations with AI, right? We ask a question, it gives us an answer, we tell it to write some code, it spits out a block of text. But what's next? I mean, it's great that AI can talk, but can it actually do stuff? Can it take our instructions and, execute them in the real world on our actual machines? Well, that is the exact problem OpenClaw is trying to solve. I absolutely love this quote because it gives you the perfect mental model right away. Just picture your favorite LLM, GPT, Claude, whatever, as this brilliant but totally disembodied brain. It can think, it can reason, it can plan, but it can't do anything. OpenClaw is the project that finally gives that brain a body. It's the hands and the keyboard that let it actually control your computer, get into your files, and mess with your apps. So we're moving from just thinking to actually acting. So, what does it take for a project to go viral this fast? I mean, it's one thing to get a bunch of stars on GitHub, but it's another thing entirely to cause hardware shortages. Let's actually look at the numbers behind OpenClaw's insane rise. Okay, the speed of adoption here is just staggering. I mean, if you're a developer, you know that 65,000 GitHub stars is a huge deal, but getting there in just a few weeks, that's almost unheard of. It just goes to show you there's this massive pent-up demand for an AI that can finally break out of the chat window. And that whole Mac Mini thing, it's not just a funny story. It proves that developers are serious enough to dedicate actual hardware to running this thing as a persistent, always-on agent. All right, so we know it's popular, but how does it actually work? Like under the hood, how does it go from a simple text command to a real-world action on your machine? To really get OpenClaw, you have to understand the core idea it's built around. See, OpenClaw isn't a chatbot. It's an autonomous agent, and that's a key distinction. A chatbot just sits there and waits for your next prompt, but an agent is designed to be proactive. It can perceive its environment. We're talking your files, your calendar, your browser, and then act on it to get something done. It has memory, it has access, and it can just run tasks in the background without you having to babysit it. This is a totally fundamental shift in how we think about interacting with these AI systems. Okay, so here's the mental model for how it actually thinks and acts. Let's walk through it. Imagine you send it a message on your phone, something like, hey, find the meeting notes with Bob, draft a follow-up email from the action items, and schedule it to send tomorrow. So first, OpenClaw gets that command. It uses an LLM, like GPT, as its brain to figure out what you want. Then the agent part kicks in, and it picks the right skills or tools for the job, a file reader, an email client, a calendar tool. It then executes those actions on your actual system, and when it's all done, it pings you back to say, job's done. It sounds simple, right? But in practice, you can probably see how unbelievably powerful this is. Now, when you grow this fast, you are bound to have some, let's call them growing pains. And for OpenClaw, that meant a full-blown identity crisis. It's actually a pretty funny story. And this timeline just perfectly captures how fast this all happened. So it first launched as ClaudeBot, a pretty obvious nod to Anthropic's Claude, right? Well, Anthropic's lawyers thought so too, and they sent let's say, a friendly notice. So it gets renamed to Maltbot, which is kind of clever, like a lobster molting its shell. That name didn't really land, and so the project finally settled on OpenClaw. The crazy part is, all of this happened in just a few weeks, right in the middle of it going completely viral. Okay, this is the part where we really need to put on our senior engineer hats. We've seen the power, we've seen the hype. Now we have to talk about the trade-offs and the very, very real risks that come with this. All right, here's the fundamental trade-off, and you really can't get around it. The thing that makes OpenClaw so incredibly compelling, giving it full control over your system, is the exact same thing that exposes your system to massive risk. They're two sides of the same coin. You simply cannot have the promise without accepting the peril. And look, when we say full system control, we really mean it. This isn't just about hitting some cloud API. We're talking about the ability to run any shell command, to read and write to your local file system, to take over your browser and fill out forms, to manage your emails and your calendar. And with custom skills, its capabilities are basically infinite. If you can script it, OpenClaw can do it. And this quote from Cisco's security team it nails the tension perfectly. From a capability perspective, it's groundbreaking. From a security perspective, It's an absolute nightmare. And that's because with this kind of access, when things go wrong, they can go very, very wrong. This is where things get tricky. And just to be super clear, these are not just theoretical what-if risks. Nope. Researchers have already found exposed OpenClaw instances out in the wild, leaking API keys and private chat histories in plain text. A malicious third-party skill, and trust me, there are going to be a ton of those, could easily be built to just silently ship all your data off to some remote server. A carefully crafted prompt could lead to command injection, tricking the agent into running rm-rf, and since these skills are basically just code packages you're downloading and running, well, the supply chain attack risk is just massive. So, okay, how bad could one of these malicious skills actually be? Well, to put a number on it, Cisco's team built a malicious skill on purpose and ran it through their scanner. What did they find? In that one single skill, nine separate security issues. That includes 2 criticals and 5 high-severity volts. That is a level of risk we are talking about from just one bad tool. It really drives home how careful you have to be about what skills you're letting this agent run on your machine. So, with all this incredible power and all this terrifying risk, where does a tool like OpenClaw actually fit in? Is it here to replace ChatGPT? The short answer is no, not at all. It's not even playing the same game. And this comparison really makes that distinction super clear. You've got ChatGPT over here, which is all about reasoning and conversation, and it lives in the cloud. Then you've got tools kind of in the middle, like Claude Cowork, that are moving toward assisted workflows, but they're still carefully sandboxed. And then you have OpenClaw, which is in a whole different league. Its job is autonomous execution. It lives on your local machine, and it has full system access that you are responsible for configuring. They are just fundamentally different tools for totally different jobs built on completely different models of trust and security. And that right there is really the key takeaway. This whole thing isn't about which tool is better than another. OpenClaw isn't replacing ChatGPT. It's answering a different question entirely. It represents this major shift from conversational AI to executional AI. It is powerful, it is risky, and it's a really fascinating peek into a future where our AI assistants don't just talk to us, they act for us. And the big question it leaves us with isn't whether it can reason better, it's whether we're actually ready to hand over the keyboard.